Groth Gets It podcast. We're here with one of our law clerks, Logan. Logan, are you the most senior law clerk? Have you been here the longest?
I am. I officially have tenure.
You officially have tenure?
Yeah, that's correct.
I don't know if that's good or bad. But congratulations. You've survived the gauntlet that is Groth Law Firm here. All right, Logan, where do you go to law school?
Marquette University.
And what year are you?
I am a Rising 3L.
Rising 3L. So this is your last year.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so all the torture that is law school hopefully will be coming to an end soon.
Yes, sir.
What kind of class load do you have this upcoming semester?
I've got criminal process, which is one that I kind of always thought should be a required course, but at Marquette it's not the curriculum.
Okay.
So I've got that. I've got creditor-debtor law with Professor Anzavino. He was my contracts professor. He's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I'd go back and do that. I've got an NIL workshop, so name, image, likeness. I came to Marquette for the sports law certificate. So that's just one of the many things that we have to do. Let's see, what else? International law. So that one should be a good time. I'm blanking on the fourth one right now, or the fifth one. But I'm in a mediation clinic as well, which I wanted to add after I've been in mediation with you several times.
Interesting. So many of those classes seem totally boring, but that's just me. For you, it might be exciting. For me, those sound like they are incredibly horrible classes. The criminal, what's the criminal one?
Criminal process.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
International, I think I took that international class.
Right.
I did not like it. That's one of the reasons why I switched from international law to personal injury, because the class I just could not handle it. What's the other one? Oh, NIL actually sounds interesting.
Yeah,
that one I'd like to.
With the changing landscape in college sports, it's a must take. For me. Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. All right. Good stuff. So we've asked law clerks to bring questions. So let's get to it and see if Groth gets it here.
So you mentioned that you mentioned that my classes sounded boring.
Yes.
So what was your favorite class then? And you can't say torts.
What was my favorite class? Now, I'm not going by the mic, so I'm breaking my own rules with the mic here. What was my favorite class in law school? Gosh. Maybe more from memories as opposed to what I learned. Professor Eitelman's constitutional law class of my first year was just fascinating based on the personalities that were in the class. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say anything more than that. I can tell you off the record about those. I enjoyed that class because of that. I did enjoy my trial advocacy kind of classes my last year with, and I can't remember my professors, but they were all Habesh attorneys, so personal injury attorneys. Right. And we had trials, and those were really fun because, for obvious reasons. But a lot of my trial advocacy classes were fun. Yeah. I know my advanced writing was a good class. My partner John and I won the best brief award, so that was, I guess I have to say, it was a good class because we won an award, whatever that means.
And you still carry around that coin.
I have the coin.
Don't you have a coin or some keepsake that you two carried around?
Oh well, it's the business card holder.
Oh,
but no, for the award, Howard Eisenberg, the dean at the time, I think he had him personally made up. It was this Waterman crystal, and he had that etched. I mean, it was really cool. Professor Eisenberg was very courteous and very kind, and was just a great guy. So, that was a good experience just because he was really cool. And who was the other professor? Supreme Court Justice Geske was the other professor. So that was a really good experience. Yeah. So, what was your question? What was my favorite class?
Favorite class.
I would go back to my trial advocacy classes were my favorite classes.
Yeah.
And there weren't exams.
Oh, wow.
So I like that.
Yeah.
So all I had to do was have a trial.
Right.
So that was better than having to write, check the box A, B, C, or D, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just speaking of exams, last semester, I had 5 exams on back-to-back-to-back-to-back-to-back days.
See, that
Monday
sounds
through Friday.
terrible. That's planning on
That
your
was on
part.
me, 100%.
Yeah, that's why I think my last year, maybe my caseload, God, I'm talking like a lawyer. My course load was, I think maybe I had like 2 classes my last semester, and maybe only 3 classes my first semester of my last year, because I had taken crazy loads in the first couple of years, and I studied in Japan and got a number of credits. So I was able to take a lot fewer classes my last year. That's why I think I liked them, because there weren't exams. There were topics that I enjoyed, and there weren't that many of them. So I could really spend a lot of time doing things that I liked. So, yeah.
What was Japan like? What made you want to go over there?
Well, because I wanted to be an international lawyer.
Okay.
So I thought, well, I'll do international law.
Right.
So then I realized I don't speak Japanese, and I realized that that was a major part of it.
Right.
So it was fun to do, but it quickly understood that I didn't have the background for it. But yeah, it was tons of fun. Lots of karaoke. Hate to be stereotypical, but there was lots of karaoke.
Nice.
All you can eat curry. That was a fun story. And like one of my classmates, it was some competition. Like it was, if you kind of like that movie, The Great Outdoors with John Candy.
Oh,
where
yeah.
he like eats the old 96er. And one of my classmates, if you ate this, like it was pounds of curry. If you ate it, you got, I think everybody got a free meal. It was something like that.
Right.
And he ate it. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Wow.
So that was a fun story to tell.
Jeez.
Yeah, a fun thing to experience, I should say.
So pivoting from there then,
Yeah.
I was told that when I come from a non-lawyer background, I think you do too, I was told by the one lawyer that I knew growing up that law school goes 1L, you scare them to death, 2L, you work them to death, and 3L, you bore them to death. Did you have a similar experience, or would you say that there's some falsehood in that statement?
I would say it is what you make of it, right? I mean, just from what I said is that I was able to take, luckily I was able to take trial ad classes that I liked.
Right.
So, what, your 3L, you're bored to death? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I mean, certainly I was anxious. I was antsy to get into the law and do something, right?
100%.
But the good thing too is my 3L year, I worked for a general practice law firm that I eventually worked for and I was a lawyer for. And as a law clerk there, I did work, and then I think I graduated maybe on Sunday, and then maybe you take, do you go to the Eastern District and get into the Eastern District or something on Monday I did.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday I was taking depositions.
Oh, wow.
So those were cases that I had been working on as a law clerk, and as soon as I got my license,
Boom.
they threw me into the den of wolves, and I was doing that kind of stuff. So, so that was, I guess, not boring, because my last semester I had a very light caseload, but I was working a lot too.
Yeah.
So I was really enjoying my school time and enjoying my law clerk time, and then I immediately got to just go and do what I had to do. Yeah.
So
Good questions. Next.
So then, kind of in depositions, just staying on that, what is your favorite part of the trial process? And then what is your least favorite part of the trial process?
Oh, that's a good question.
As soon as complaints filed and we are going, what is your least and most favorite parts?
My least favorite part of the trial process, it's kind of, I hate to say it's one and the same, but it's kind of one and the same. My least favorite part is the time that you're getting ready for trial, because there's a lot of anxiety involved in, do I have everything? I mean, like literally the weeks before trial. Right. But also that's my favorite part, because you're all in, right? Yeah. And you're at that point, you know that you're going to trial, and then maybe this wasn't your question, but my favorite part about getting ready for trial is actually the trial. Right. I mean, when you're actually in trial, I know a couple of years ago, it was torture. One of our attorneys was trying a case, and I had to watch it, and I was just, muttering under my breath, and I had to eventually leave the courtroom, because there are things that I just wanted to do. And there's certain positions that you take when you're in, there's some theater, or there's lots of theater involved in a trial. So there's things like, you should be over here. You should be, your back shouldn't be there, or you should have this ready or that ready, or why don't you have these things available? And all of that is fun because I like the strategy of it. I like thinking, 6 moves ahead and knowing, okay, this is what's going to be on the screen. And if I put this on the screen or I put that there, will defense counsel know that it's been up there the entire time? All those different things. And if I ask this question in jury selection, will that get an objection? Maybe I want the objection.
Right.
Maybe, whatever is going on to call attention to this fact, or all those different items I think are very fun to prepare for, and then implementing them is just plain fun. So, but the slog, maybe if that's the word, I don't know how we're going to spell that in the transcript, but the slog of it is the most difficult part because it's just so boring. And luckily we have, fantastic team members here who help us through the slog, but
exactly
that's the most boring part.
Right. So, you mentioned that there's a lot of theater in it. Did you ever have any My Cousin Vinny moments at the beginning of your career where you were out of line inadvertently? Where you just felt like, oh, I can't believe I just said that. Did you ever dress a certain way, show up in a bright red suit?
No, I luckily had employers of mine, bosses, mentors of mine that were that way. I did have a My Cousin Vinny moment, in a different way.
Right.
So I was in right out of law school. I was in. Sorry, I'm getting notifications on our smartphones are bugging us. Right out of law school, I worked for this general practice firm, and I did a lot of small claims stuff.
Right.
And it was tons of fun because you walk in and you don't know who's going to show up. You might have 10 cases that you don't know what's going to happen. And you kind of know what the defenses are. You don't know if they're going to show up or if somebody else is going to show up. And if somebody else shows up, are they appropriate? Should they be there? And if they are there, and they shouldn't be, will the court commissioner allow them? I mean, it's you're sitting there and it's the Wild West, and it's kind of fun that way, but it's also very nerve-wracking. So I was handling a case on appeal, and in small claims, you have your case before your court commissioner, and then you have an automatic right to appeal to a circuit court judge. Right. So I was, I don't know if we lost or won, I don't recall, but we went to the circuit court judge, and it's across the hall, kind of down the hall. And I'm in front of this circuit court judge, and it's a cattle call. So they say, you might be at 8:30, the next case is at 8:45, next case is at 9, and they figure out what's going on. Mm-hmm. So, and they aren't that close together, but you get my point. So at, let's say 8:30, they call this case, and it's one of my classmates. So he comes up and he's making his argument, and it is painful. And it's kind of like My Cousin Vinny,
right?
Where dressed in a fashion that is out of style to the point where it's noticeable, right? And saying things that is borders on inappropriate,
right?
And I'm trying to be nice because I don't know who's going to see this video, but it was tough to watch. I'll say that.
Right.
So, person leaves.
Yeah.
I get up and the judge says, "Well, counselor, I think you know that person. This is where you need to sit down with that person and really tell them that they need to get a mentor because them being on their own is bad for the profession." And you need to talk to them also and just tell them there's basic things in life that you have to do. So that was really early on in my career. So what I made a habit of is I would go before I had a trial or before I had some hearing.
Right.
When I was younger, when I had more time, I would go to court and just watch. Mm-hmm. And I'd be the person in the back watching kind of the judge's demeanor or watch where the attorneys go. So if you're supposed to walk to the left to do something, I would walk to the left to do that thing. I wouldn't sit there or walk to the right and, the judge is like, "What are you doing?" Or, "Why is this so incredibly awkward?" I wanted to act like I had been there before. So I would go and then just watch other attorneys do it. And I also made phone calls to people and asked exactly what their advice was for, with this judge or that judge, or what did you have to do? I had a judge in Rock County who required that all of our objections be according to case number or by statute.
This, yeah.
So it was you had to object according to statute. You couldn't object to, asked and answered. Or object to the foundation or whatever. You had to have the number. So, those kind of things you won't know until you ask the judge or you've been before the judge. And I had multiple trials in front of this judge. So luckily it was easier the second and third time. But, the first time it was kind of tough. Like, oh man, I got to really figure out where, who to, or where to get my cheat sheet from or how to create my cheat sheet so I don't look like an idiot, because the judge is going to call you out in front of the jury and that'll be bad. So, so those are my moments of kind of not looking like a pro, which everybody has, and that's just part of the
And those
practice.
were just straight cold calls to different attorneys. I mean, you just had no idea who. I mean, obviously you knew who you were calling, but did they know you at that time? Were you just saying, "Hey, this is Jon Groth. Do you have any help?" Like, how did you navigate that?
So I joined organizations, and that was a big deal. And I'd recommend for young lawyers all across the world here to join organizations. So back in the day, it was called the Wisconsin Academy of Trial Lawyers. Mm-hmm. So I was very involved in that. I don't know, I was the president of the Young Lawyers Division at some point in the early 2000s, 2003 or 4 or something, I don't know when. So I was very involved. So we had other young lawyers who, you go to these conferences, you go to these, you go to board meetings, and other lawyers are there, and they're very willing to help out. And then there's a listserv, so you could send emails out and ask, hey, what's this judge like, or what's that judge like? And I had the luxury of, when I worked for the general practice firm, I was involved in the new lawyers section in Milwaukee and Waukesha. So you go to those meetings ever so often, and you just meet people or meet judges especially who will give you kind of a leg up. And I think when you graduate, you're automatically a member. If you're in Milwaukee especially, I think you're a member of the Milwaukee Young Lawyers or Milwaukee Bar Association.
I think that's right.
Right?
Yeah,
and then
that's correct.
Go to all those, there's one judges night I know that they have, and there's the new lawyers section, and all those. If you can get involved in those, there's lots of opportunities to talk to other lawyers and find out whether you'll make a connection with a mentor.
Yeah. So you mentioned Rock County. Just made me think of the courthouse situation that we have in Wisconsin. What's your favorite courthouse in the state? Absolutely no legal analysis here. I'm just asking, what's the most unique or your favorite courthouse? I know that the attorney I worked for last year told me hers was always Manitowoc. She loved it. She's actually posted about it several times, how much she loves, how unique it is.
Manitowoc?
Yeah, that's what she said.
I've certainly been to the Manitowoc courthouse a number of times. I can't recall it being my favorite courthouse.
The only two that I've been in are Milwaukee County and Waukesha County.
Yeah. And you want to look at, some cool courthouses, ones that aren't that cool. No offense to Rock County, but Rock County is very new. Right. The old courthouse in Kenosha is cool. Lincoln County, really cool. Lincoln County is a pretty sweet courthouse. Just because it's so old.
I don't even know where Lincoln County is.
Lincoln County, if you're seeing me, whichever. It's like north of Wausau-ish, south of Minocqua, middle of the state, northern part of the state. Yeah. Really cool courthouse. Marinette County Courthouse is pretty cool. Yeah. They have some new areas that, again, new is okay, but the old courthouses are really kind of sweet.
Right.
The Milwaukee County Federal Building, the federal courthouse is pretty cool, just because it's so massive. And you get in there, and it's just like one huge room, and it looks like something you'd see in a movie. But yeah, if I were to say something, I would maybe say, Lincoln County is pretty cool. Sorry, I keep on going back to Lincoln County because I was at that courthouse a couple times last year, and it just was a neat courthouse.
Right.
Yeah.
So, your least favorite class in law school? You can't really say all of them, other than the ones you like.
My least favorite class in law? Well, didn't I answer this question?
Well, no, you said your favorite, but I've been sitting here thinking, what doesn't Jon Groth like? Because you seem like a connoisseur.
I can't answer this question because then it brings a story that may be offensive to some people.
Oh, well, then off the record, we'll get that answer.
I will say this. So there's a movie. Mm-hmm. Is it Billy Madison, maybe, with Adam Sandler? And there's the where he's it's a debate, right?
Or the academic decathlon.
The academic decathlon.
Yeah.
And he gives the story about the comfy little puppy or the sweet little
the puppy that lost its way.
The puppy that lost its way.
Absolutely.
And then the moderator says, Mr. Madison, thank you for that answer, but everyone here is dumber for having heard that answer.
Right.
May God have mercy on your soul or something, right?
I award you no points. May God have mercy on your soul. Yeah.
So I took a class in law school that at the end of the class, you're able to write a review of the teacher.
Right.
And my comments were, I quoted that.
Yeah.
I said,
that's fantastic.
I learned nothing in this class.
Right.
I am dumber for having, I think I wrote, I am dumber for having taken this class.
Right.
Whatever. I didn't say, may God have mercy on your soul. I just said, I am dumber for having taken this class. In essence, zero review. So that was a tough class.
Yeah.
It was just a terrible
I learned
class.
that in law school, specifically at Marquette, that our reviews are screened, and the ones that are bad, that say things like that, they just get thrown out. So
how'd you learn that?
Who told me that?
Well, don't call about it.
I'm not. I would never. I'm just trying to think of.
Is this hearsay, counselor? Is this like
this was from the screener? Yeah,
from a employee or a student?
An employee.
Really,
an employee told me that, and that was just recently. And I thought,
well, I can see. I mean, if you're a jerk and you say, you're calling somebody names.
Yeah, if you make it too personal or anything like that. But I certainly think that there has to be room for criticism. Mm-hmm. I mean, we get criticized every day in our jobs. I mean, yeah.
Oh, sure.
So that's
Well, and this professor, I don't think was supposed to teach this class initially,
right?
And did, and it was just terrible. I mean, and I don't recall what my grade was. I'm sure it wasn't great. And it was just not I did not learn anything in that class, and I can't. I know what class it was, but I cannot remember anything from that class. Other classes you duty breach cause harm. I mean, I recall that from class.
Yep.
Certain contracts have to be in writing. I recall that. The napkin rules, whatever else.
Southworth elements.
Yeah. And then what's the well, if you're the word intestate, I recall intestate from class, but anyway. All right, next question.
Next question I will do, well, you already answered if you had to practice a different area of law. It seems like you would have wanted to be an international lawyer.
Well, but gosh, I wouldn't do that now. I mean, that was a fleeting, is that the right word? Fleeing or fleeting? I think fleeting.
McKenna and I just had this conversation about this.
We'll change that in the...
change that in the transcript.
In the transcript,
I think it's fleeting.
In editing.
It's fleeting.
Fleeting. That was a fleeting desire of mine to be an international lawyer. I think now if I were to do it, honestly, I hate to say I'd go into sales, but I might go into sales or do something else like that as opposed to law in general maybe. But I'm not sure. Like if I had my druthers and in 15 years, what would I do? I think it would be fun to kind of go back to the basics and just be that trial lawyer,
right?
And just go crazy for a number of years where you're just trying cases. I think,
and you kind of did that.
I did,
right? I listened to one of your podcasts, where you were talking about how you literally were just camping out in other attorneys' offices, going through their files and trying all their cases when you first started out, or when you branched out and wanted to start your own practice. Which is gutsy, beyond gutsy.
So maybe that's what I would do, because I think I still do.
Right.
I still do personal injury law, or I do litigation.
Right.
I just don't want to do any other kind of law. I mean, I don't want to do criminal. I do not want to do divorce.
Yeah, I've heard that's the messiest.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't imagine.
Emotionally, I can't imagine dealing with that that burden every single day.
Right.
Because you are too close, well, you're so close to your clients, and that maybe you get too close to your clients where their burden is your burden. And it's just horrific.
Right. And speaking of being, on emotional sides, I mean, we're on the complete opposite side of the emotion spectrum. And we got to see it just last week at the end of that mediation that we did. I mean, we had a client was crying and it was pure joy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
happiness.
Pure. So we get to be on, the good side of emotions. Obviously,
sometimes you're on the good side of emotions.
Obviously, we see, pretty horrific injuries, and we have to be with the client. And that's part of what we sign up for. But at the end, the end goal here is to see smiles and tears of joy, not tears of, families ripping apart and having to deal with the aftermath of that. So that's kind of my appeal to personal injury is, just what we saw last week in that mediation. So going back to young attorneys, what's a day look like for a 25-year-old attorney that just graduated law school, starting out at a firm? I would assume.
Long.
That's what I've heard.
You should get to the office first. You should leave the office last. No offense, but you should. Ask lots of questions.
Right.
Take on lots of responsibilities.
Right.
Meaning accept any project that you have,
right.
Because you want to be a sponge of knowledge, and then selfishly you can figure out, do I want to do this or not, right?
Exactly.
So taking as many projects and different types of projects as you can.
Right.
And what should a day be like? I mean,
even before you get to the office, I mean, what time would you wake up in the morning? As soon as you graduate law school, what time are you getting up all the way to when are you going to bed?
Well, it kind of depends on when the office opens.
Right.
If the office opens, if you're given a key,
right.
Maybe you should open the office, or you should get there pretty early. So I was different in that my goal was to try to get there as, be the first one in the office and the last one to leave.
Right.
And I don't know where that came from, if that was from my sister, my parents, or whomever, saying that or instilling that, or if there was some law school mentor or somebody who said that, or a book I read. I don't recall, but there was that. And then even now, my habit is I get in the car, and before I'm out of my garage, I'm making a phone call. And here I'm making a phone call to our lead paralegal, or our HR manager, or our office manager, our chief operations or director of operations, trying to figure out what the plan is for the day.
Exactly.
So, that kind of thing. Back in the day when I was right out of law school, my day consisted of, as I'm driving into work, I had my dictation device, and I was dictating letters because I had to bill time.
Okay.
I would dictate letters that I would then, when I got to the office, I know I had this work done. I'd give it to whoever was going to transcribe that.
Right.
And then they'd work on those letters. And then I knew an hour later or whenever, I'd get those, I could review them and then send them out.
Right.
Or I would make phone calls, and I would take projects where, I would go meet with a client in West Bend, let's say, and it was a half-hour drive. And then on the way from, Waukesha to West Bend, I'd make phone calls or dictate while I was going there. So that was a day of using every second that I could efficiently, so I could get the work done and then come back and just learn other things. And it was, and then the nights consisted of, if there was a judge's night or a new lawyer section or something else, I would go to those events and just try to, shake hands, kiss babies, whatever you can to get your name out there.
Right.
So it was, there was a lot of stuff going on, and it was nice for me because I was billing my time initially, so you could see how productive you were or how non-productive you were. I mean, I can't imagine now with TikTok and Instagram and all that, you're getting sucked into these things. If you don't have the ability to control what you're getting sucked into, you're just going to waste potentially hours of your day for nothing, So that's kind of a benefit of keeping track of your time.
Yeah, exactly.
If you were billing 8 hours a day, well, you know that you did 8 hours worth of work.
Right.
as opposed to, I mean, now we don't do billing unless it's our vaccine practice, but you don't really know whether you 100%. Got on a tangent and you wasted an hour of your day.
Yeah.
So it's just, packing in as much as you can, because
right.
This is more like an old man. I'm talking like an old man here, but that's what the benefit of being young is. You would just have extra time. You don't have the responsibilities of, 3 kids and dogs you have to walk and sports at night and other things, or managing the law firm and practicing law or doing whatever you're doing.
Right.
You can just concentrate on the law.
Right. And you mentioned earlier, I think last week sometime, about we have the luxury now of taking a laptop home and reviewing demands, signing off on things while you're off the clock. And here it's a little different, but when you were coming up, it was you would have to take files with you if at all, or you were just practically sleeping at the office. I'm sure sometimes you did sleep at the office.
Yeah, and they did have they had coaches. I mean, they would tell stories about attorneys and the attorneys who worked at the firm in the old days would have a martini lunch, whatever it was called, back in the 60s and 70s, when they'd dictate all morning, give the dictation devices, the discs or the tapes to staff, and they go to lunch, and they'd have a martini at lunch. They'd come back, take a nap on their couch, and then it'll all be done. And then they review it until the end of the day, and then go home. I mean, it was that kind of there was not the immediacy. Whereas, when I first started, faxes were the immediate questions, where we would get faxes, and then you had to answer those faxes. It was almost like an immediate need. Whereas letters were not as immediate, because everybody knew it was going to take a couple of days to get there.
Definitely.
And then emails made it even more immediate. And now with texts, I mean, gosh, we have clients who text us, and then if you don't see those 3 dots with somebody responding, you're offended, because, and maybe rightfully so, that's just how society is. Yeah. But it's a whole different world back then as it is to now. So taking files home, I had red ropes that I would put in my briefcase and then take home and look over the paper files.
Right.
Now I don't even know. I know where we have red ropes. We have them in a storage facility. We have literally hundreds of boxes of old files that are empty, because we scanned all the documents and they're in the cloud somewhere. But the physical red ropes I still have them, because someday I might need them, I guess. But I should probably have a bonfire and just get rid of those things.
Say, you have a heck of a bonfire. I mean, you probably break some sort of law and
probably ruin the environment too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we roast some wieners and have a good old fashioned GLF cookout out there.
You said it, not me. Yes.
You're the one's got to sign off on it, though. So martini lunches. We've dealt with some of those here, actually, with with some defendants and some cases that we've settled out. So that's fancy.
I don't think he was drinking martinis, though. What was he drinking?
Jack and Pepsis.
Jack and Pepsis.
Yeah.
Not Jack and Cokes.
No.
Jack and Pepsis.
Tall Jack and Pepsis. Tall ones.
Yeah. So, and that was a drunk driving case where a drunk driver who was drinking tall Jack and Pepsis caused a horrible crash.
Which is a
and he was on the job.
Expensing
his Jack and Pepsis. Yeah.
That was one that was, I think, my when I first got on here, I didn't even know if I wanted to do personal injury. And as soon as you had me make those calendars, and I was going through and looking at receipts and putting the puzzle together for you, I was like, this is fun. I was like, this is going to be my job. This is exactly what I want to do. I want to help. And we made all those files for it, and then you laid it out. And we didn't even mediate that one, did we? I think they just made an offer at the end, and we just said, you know what? I think this is good.
Yeah.
But that was incredible. I still have those files just sitting on my desktop, and I just look at them every once in a while. I think, that was.
But see, that's the fun
cool.
of the fun part of the job is getting ready for trial, and it's that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
when
exactly.
You can put the puzzle together, and it's almost complete. You're like, oh man, this actually looks like something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that was the first big one. And then the one that we did last week, I was put on that one for just the mediation statement really early. And I remember just going through and reading stuff and thinking, wow, like, we can really help. We can make a difference here.
Yeah.
So that
cool.
That's pretty cool. So.
All right, we're getting the wind down.
Yeah.
Do you have any final questions? You have a whole list there.
I
Holy
had 7,
smokes.
but I talked to Allison before I came in, and she told me what she asked, and so I crossed out like 3 or 4. No, I mean, I guess I think you answered everything that I wanted, other than when did you know you wanted to be a lawyer?
Oh, gosh. My best friend in grade school's dad was a lawyer.
Right.
And that's when I first knew about lawyers, but I had no one in my family is a lawyer. I don't think I really knew I wanted to be a lawyer, and I didn't really know what a lawyer entailed until kind of almost law school. I mean, I knew of some lawyers. So my friend's dad, he went to the office, he had a briefcase.
Yeah.
He did like trust and estates and general practice kind of law. But I didn't see him as like a lawyer and on TV kind of lawyer, but it was a desk job, so I understood that, and I understand his title was lawyer, and I think I'm pretty sure he's also a CPA. But anyway, so I was aware of it in undergrad. I understood that with my degree, I didn't have many options. So it was either military, working in politics,
or
political
science.
It was political,
As was I.
Yeah. So it's either military, working in politics in Madison or in D.C., or law school. And I worked on a campaign that lost, so it wasn't politics. Military, I was somewhat, I was involved in sports in high school, but I don't think I have the physical ability to be in the military. Those people who can do that are, much better than I am. So that was probably a no. And then luckily, Marquette said yes to me.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I'm off the hook for those two, and I'm going to go to law school. And then I kind of learned throughout the process that, this is something that I enjoyed, because I liked, in politics, I liked the strategy of it all.
Yep.
And the advocacy for something, so it's kind of natural.
Yeah. It's kind of a very similar path that I took, other than I watched the movie. I was told by my first employer never to tell this story, but to me, it's just me. I watched Jerry Maguire with my mom when I was 12, and I thought, I want to be that guy.
He's not a lawyer. Is he a lawyer?
Yeah.
Jerry Maguire's a lawyer?
Yeah, he's a sports agent. He went to law school at Florida
but he's
State.
An agent.
Right, but he says in the beginning he went to law school at Florida State or wherever.
Oh,
and
I never
practiced. And so I watched Jerry Maguire and then the movie The Firm. And I always thought that because, Tom Cruise is the guy in The Firm, I thought, oh, that's Jerry Maguire. And so I was like, I want to be that guy. I want to wear a suit. I want to carry a briefcase. I want to be professional. I want to go in. I played baseball growing up and all the way through college, and I was like, I got to wear a uniform. A suit's as close to a uniform as I'm going to get after I hang it up. So here I am today, wearing a suit, trying to be a lawyer. And so it's
a continued practice. We're practicing law. We're not perfecting. We're practicing law. So you could be a sports agent. You could be a commercial litigator like The Firm or what have you. Yeah. Interesting.
Yep. So
cool.
So there we are.
That's the origin story for Logan. Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool things. All right. Well, I think Groth gets it. Good job. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we'll hopefully hear back from Logan and our other clerks with more follow-up questions. We'll make this a continued series, and we'll go from there. Thanks again.
I'll be around.
Thanks.